This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Geragos and Gary Smith.
GPS, how are you on this wonderful 4th of July weekend?
I can't imagine I'm as proud as you are.
Yeah, it's been quite a week. I've thought about my mother and my father quite a bit, just what their reaction would be to
seeing their granddaughter pull off something that spectacular.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah, it's hard not to think of the generations, both ahead and behind when stuff like that happens. And it's really something. And I was commenting to a friend today because it's in my world, at least for those who don't know, it's Tenny, my daughter, is and continues to be they call her co-lead counsel for Diddy, and pulled off one of the most spectacular jury trial victories in recent memory. And what a female, with apologies to Mark Agnifilo and Brian Steele and Xavier and Triple D, Jason Driscoll. The females were really kind of the heart and soul of that defense. Tenny did the did the opening famously in the cross-examination of the complaining witness Jane, and Anna did the cross-examination of Cassie. And for those who don't remember, there was quite a bit of second guessing going on during the trial by so-called commentators, and my affection for Cliff Gardner. Sure.
With Menendez, I often extol the virtues of him as a appellate lawyer. Well, the East Coast version of that, Alexandra Shapiro, was just spectacular in the defense. And Nicole Westmoreland, who I have come to love, who they brought in from Atlanta, I think fresh off of Young Thug as well. You would know, Gary.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Nicole is just what a spectacular lawyer, human being, and I just love her to death. I mean, it was great to see. And I just think also, I was thinking about and I've talked a couple of times about Leslie Abramson in the context of Eric and Lyle Menendez, and Leslie, when I was coming up, was something quite phenomenal in the criminal defense bar, which was a female. She and Jill Lansing were female criminal defense lawyers operating at the highest level. You didn't see a whole lot of that back when I was first starting. And clearly when I think about my father, and he would talk about, there was an old time female defense lawyer named Gladys Root, who was not as far back as Clara Shortridge Foltz, who the CCB is now named after, but Gladys Root was famous in her day as a female defense lawyer. And Linda Moreno, who I've known forever, who's a very accomplished female defense lawyer. I mean, it's a very small unit. The criminal defense fraternity and sorority, if you will, is very small, and then it's also very small within that the female defense criminal defense lawyers as well. And it's just wonderful to see a group operating at that level and so accomplished.
It's got to feel like a weight off your shoulders. I'm going to peel the curtain back a little bit here, because there might be whiplash for some reasonable doubt listeners. You ended up kind of embroiled in a gag order, for lack of a better term, as a result of some stuff that was said on your other podcasts and complaints by the prosecution team. But now you are able to speak freely. We never really addressed that on this show. We just sort of steered clear of the topic. But if anyone's wondering why this is going to be such a Diddy-centric show and why Mark is able to speak after having not been speaking for so many weeks, that's fair. That's pretty much why.
Right. And, part of the interesting part of that if you will, is the comment of a six-pack. A six-pack, by the way, I suppose, I don't know about you, Gary, but a lot of people take that as kind of, oh, you're referring to like a six-pack of beer or a six-pack of whatever. A six-pack is the term that in LA is used in LA, in California.
See, I heard it through that prism because I've spent so much time around you, but I can, I guess, understand why someone who's not embroiled in the legal community would assign the pejorative nature of or whatever, whatever.
A six-pack is what we call a lineup when they put the 6 photos of the people, and you're supposed to, the history of it is a six-pack and suggestive lineups and things of that nature are things that we've litigated here in the criminal defense community for many years. You don't want unduly suggestive ones.
Sure.
You wouldn't put 5 whites and 1 black in a six-pack. You wouldn't put 5 blacks and 1 white in a six-pack.
Right.
There's a whole kind of progeny of cases about a six-pack. So a six-pack is a descriptive term that is used, kind of the nomenclature, for describing a group of humans who may look alike or may resemble each other or might.
Can I venture a guess here? Did you not have the ability to make this case when this became an issue? Because you seem like you've had this locked and loaded for weeks.
I've had it. I have stewed over it. So
I bet you did.
I'll just leave it there. But I will tell you that. And maybe next week I'll let even more out. But yes, Gary. Thank you for identifying the fact that it's a cathartic release here.
Well, I think
may have heard it. You may have heard it off the air.
Well, maybe I did, but that's neither here nor there. As
I was saying it, it's so funny you say that, because as I was saying this, I think I've had this conversation with Gary before, but it wasn't all.
Well, Mark, I know that that was the thing that got harped on quite a bit, but I would say that your other podcast co-host is as much to blame for what may have gone on there as you are. And I'd just like to say that my side of the street is clean. You didn't hear GPS coming up in the New York courthouse.
What do they call it? Pure as Caesar's wife.
Yeah.
Was that the old expression?
Yeah.
Although I don't know if that's a politically correct description. One of the other things, speaking of politically correct, that a lot of commentators I've seen, and there's been a lot of interpretation and buzzing around this. It's just interesting to me when you take a look at some things that have occurred recently, that the kind of pushback against themes that were topical that have kind of infiltrated into the criminal justice system. So it was wonderful to see jurors who did their job and did it right and hewed to the evidence. And I just think it's refreshing. The jurors, I think, remarkable in a couple of senses. You don't have I don't think there was a single juror who was late during that trial. Mind you, 6 weeks in New York. I don't think there was a juror who and uniformly, I haven't heard anybody speak out save one alternate.
Just that alternate who's been making the rounds, man. He has not found a microphone that he is not in love with.
I've only seen the one. So
I've seen him 2 or 3 places now. It was the one at first that we circulated, but since then I've seen him a few other places online.
Yeah, so that's interesting. One of the things somebody had asked, and it is one of if you try cases, one of the worst moments as a trial lawyer is once you finish. Mark Agnifilo gave that rightfully so, one of the great closing arguments. Mark was there. Obviously, if you were watching during the trial, Mark connected with that jury. They liked him. He was described, somebody kind of, I think in a deprecating way, called him faux father. I would say the more accurate definition would be to use the term avuncular. Just kind of, he had that wholesome, authentic tour guide quality to them, which is important. You got to be authentic to a jury. You can't just assume that jurors have are you can't patronize them. Number one.
Well, and to your point, I heard that the close from the rebuttal rather from the prosecution was characterized a lot differently than what you're describing of Mark Agnifalo's connection with the jury. I heard that it did not connect.
Yeah, but the interesting thing also about closings, you've heard me say this a million times. One of the things that I believe about closings is you're arming the people who you think are who have seen the case the way you see the case with the arguments to make when they get back there. And I would venture to say, we haven't heard from any jurors, but one of the things, and that's a great observation by you, Gary, one of the things that was interesting is one of the last jury notes was a note that had that said something to the effect of, we are hung on count one, but we have verdicts on the remaining counts. And at first blush, you would think, that is guilt. And I think once you saw it, though, or read the note, or saw it, parsed the words of it, you could understand that no, they had split the other counts, and that's why they were hung on the count one. And the judge did not, for those who have heard or listened to us for a while, did not give an Allen instruction. You would have thought an Allen instruction is the jury instruction outlawed here in California, in the state courts at least, but still you can give it in the federal courts, which is labeled the dynamite instruction. That was not given. His Honor gave a very it was
a thoughtful and impassioned plea to the jury, explaining to them what their responsibilities were and encouraging them to go back and try again. I read it, and it seemed I obviously did not hear him say it, but having read it, it seemed thoughtful.
I thought so too. And sure enough, I believe after having given it, and within 90 minutes of deliberation time, not 90 minutes of when they got it, or maybe it was, I wasn't doing a timeline, but 90 minutes later, they had a verdict on count one. And count one, for those who aren't in the weeds, was the RICO count. And then they found Diddy not guilty on the sex trafficking counts. The reason that was so important, the reason this was such a big win, is that the RICO count has a mandatory minimum. The sex trafficking counts have 15-year mandatory minimums, and all of that, all those three counts that he was found not guilty of, have dire consequences. And so he was found guilty of the two sex, the Mann Act violations, which, by anybody's calculation, is a stupendous win for him, given the fact and the resources that were trained his way. I mean, he, as he sits there, I know it's never easy to be a criminal defendant, and it's doubly hard to be a criminal defendant who's in custody. But what a spectacular result.
And my understanding is that the sentencing was set for sometime in October, but the judge has set a hearing for this coming Tuesday where he is going to consider arguments to move that up. Is that the case?
That's exactly right. Listen to that, and I think that's exactly right. The prosecutors came in, and a lot of people are saying, well, Diddy's going to get hammered. These two counts carry with them a potential for 10 years apiece, blah, blah, blah. Well, the prosecutors are making the calculation, are telling the judge it was a crime, that those are crimes of violence, or that violence is related here, and that's why bail should be denied pending the sentencing. And they've done their own calculations. I want to say in their document, 51 to 63 months under the guidelines. I think the defense has suggested 21 to 27 months. And I think there'll be an analysis that's done either by probation or not. One of the arguments that Mark Agnifilo had made is, look, Judge, in a case like this, I don't know that you need the full-throated, what's called pre-sentencing report, PSR, because you've heard this case, and that's unusual, especially in federal court, because in federal court, some ungodly percentage of criminal cases are determined by plea agreements. And when I say ungodly, it's
like 90%, right?
Yeah, it's well over that.
Yeah.
Many judges I know have very few, if any, criminal jury trials that they presided over, other than some kind of minor criminal offenses. It's becoming exceedingly rare to see federal criminal trials, and which is, I don't think, a good thing. It's just there are so many incentives, if you will, to plead, and prosecutors really hold all of the cards when it comes to taking something to trial. It requires an enormous amount of fortitude to take something to trial in federal court at this point.
Well, Tenny did it, and Tenny was successful, and that's got to be just spectacular to watch from your point of view. And I'm very pleased for you that you get to experience that, and that she got to experience it as well. It's as you said, it's not something that a lot of people are going to get a chance to do in their career. So that's very special that she got that under her belt so early in her career as well.
It's exactly right. And I know she's relishing it, and I know she's relishing moving forward, getting Puff out. And the reaction has been uniformly, at least in the people that I know, one of just amazement. And I kind of share that to some degree. It's phenomenal to watch somebody's career take off, and especially when it's one of your kids. So to all parents out there, I think you can relate. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Mark, you want to leave it there, or do you want to?
I do. Okay. There's a couple other stories, but we'll leave it there. Why?
Yeah. No, we don't need to muddy the waters. Let's leave it there. Right. This is our Diddy update after weeks of Mark being saddled with an inability to speak. We finally gave him a chance, and boy, did he have that 6-pack of women thing just stored up and ready to go, didn't he? I'm sorry I cut you off. I know you could have gone for the full 30 minutes, but I at some point, I had to throw a stop sign up there.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the remaining hours of the 4th of July weekend.
Thank you very much, Mark. You as well. Congratulations again. And
I'll just say one thing, though.
Yeah.
Appropriate that it's right before the 4th of July, when traditionally Diddy had his white party, and I'll leave it at there.
I will leave it there as well. Mark, thanks for making some time for us on a holiday weekend. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Gary. Talk to you.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast.